The 1968 Olympic trials set the stage for the most dramatic political protest in modern sports history. Black athletes debated the form their protest would take. San Jose State professor Harry Edwards called for a boycott of the games in Mexico City.
It became very, very clear that sport was much like the rest of society, the same kinds of limitations, the same kinds of ideological assumptions, the same kinds of constraints on opportunity and on virtually every other dimension of black life that you found in the rest of society. We will let you know about the future of your Olympic team when we deem it proper and when we feel that you can handle that kind of information. Right now, we just don't think that you're ready.
In sports, I think, people looked at an athlete and they listened to what he had to say, and Dr. Edwards was smart enough to look at that and say, hey, we need to say more things than how fast we ran the 100 or how long we hit a ball or how far we shot a jump shot. We need to start speaking out. And he started to organize folks and started to make these folks say and do some things that society became very uncomfortable with.
The black community was divided over this new militancy and the possibility of a boycott.
I deplore the idea of where politics will enter into the Olympic Games because, as you know, the Olympic Games was set up to dispel any political or religious faith that, that might be invoked into the Games itself.
If today the conditions were the same and the Negro was breaking in, and I was that Negro breaking in, I would join these protests so that my children and their children wouldn't have to go through the same things that I went through trying to break down discrimination.
After a year of debate over the boycott, black team members decided to join their fellow Olympians in Mexico City, but they were still uncertain about what to do to call attention to conditions in black America.
There had been meetings inside the Olympic Village about what are we going to do as athletes when we go to compete. How are we going to express to the world that the unfair treatments of blacks in America? And there was no plan. There was no master plan. This is how you do it. This is what you do.
We could not come to a consensus that would unite everybody. Everybody tie a string around your finger. Everybody do this. Everybody do that. So the decision was made. Everybody would do their own thing.
On the fifth day of the Olympics, two black Americans made a statement.
It's John Carlos right now. It's Carlos and Smith. And here comes Tommie Smith. Smith has done it with his hands in the air.
.200-meter medalists Tommie Smith and John Carlos stunned the world by raising their gloved fists in protest.
It was just like anybody going on a victory stand. And everybody who was in the stands were like, what's happening here? And we were all shocked, and I think we all stood more to attention at the national anthem than ever, because we were like, what is going on?
The right glove that I wore on my right hand signified the power within black America.
You could almost hear the wind blowing around my fist. It would just stay quiet. Then there was a buzz. But I heard Lee Evans very, very vividly said, oh, shit.
And the next thing I know, people were beginning to mobilize their forces, and the idea was to get these guys out of the Olympic Village. Just get rid of them.
Where are you going, Carlos?
I'm going home. The USOC gave John Carlos and Tommie Smith 24 hours, I do believe, to leave Mexico City. They also told us to come to the Olympic quarter so they can take our medals back.
And I asked a question. I said, okay, if you're going to kick them out of the village, are you going to use their medal count, too, in the U.S. medal count? Are you going to do that? Nobody answered that question. And if you remember, the Soviet Union at that time had occupied Prague, Czechoslovakia. And a Czech gymnast at Mexico City won a bunch of medals. And every time on the victory stand, she made a protest.
And again, she has turned her head to the right and down, just as she did at the last ceremony. This does not appear to be an accident.
no one ever made an issue of that one. And I just thought, wow, there's another indication of the ideas that, yeah, there is some difference in this country. There is very definitely some difference.
Smith and Carlos did make a difference since their medals were included in the final count. Black Olympians took home nearly half the medals won by the U.S. team.
We're a winner, and never let anybody say, boy, you can't make it, 'cause a feeble mind is in your way. No more tears do we cry, and we have finally dried our eyes, and we're moving on up.
Black Olympians in Mexico City called attention to America's problems at home. Through the power of one dramatic, silent gesture, Smith and Carlos made a giant leap and challenged America to follow.